welcome to the show. So excited to have you here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I know you and I were just chit-chatting a little bit before, and I know you and I have relatively just gotten to know each other. And of course, my dog's going to like hack up along underneath my desk as soon as we start hitting record. But I would love for you to share a little bit about you and who you are and who you serve and things like that for those people that don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ilana Navarro. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California and also a mastery method life coach kind of all over the world. I primarily work with people in the States, but I love working with women's issues. So people tend to find me from all over the place on Instagram. That's kind of like my biggest platform, I would say.
Yeah.
And I work primarily with women around women's issues, anything ranging from anxiety, depression, more the clinical mental health struggles, to body image, disordered eating, chronic dieting, body image dissatisfaction. Really, the way I kind of phrase it is like women's relationship to themselves. That's kind of like the root of my work, helping people develop a really strong connection and relationship to themselves so that their self-care, self-talk, and goals and their life is really integrated and they're taking the best care of themselves as they possibly can, which then translates into their relationships, their work, their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny how like taking care of ourselves oftentimes is the thing that we put last on the list, and yet it's the thing that makes such a big impact in how we show up every day. Like it
sounds so simple, honestly, and it's definitely not taught to us, and it sounds simple, but it's not easy. I think that's always the distinction I make is sure, these concepts are simplistic perhaps, but they feel very overwhelming. And especially a lot of the women I serve are high functioning, perfectionistic, maybe people-pleasing tendencies. Maybe they take on caretaker roles and they're always putting other people before their own needs. And so these patterns develop, and the concept of coming back to yourself and having needs and having desires and wants and taking care of yourself is just a foreign concept that really is a struggle to reintegrate into a lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you bring that up. I years ago had done an exercise in a program that had you list out 100 things that you desire. And I now make my clients do it too inside my program, is writing out 100 things that they desire. And I remember at the time feeling like I could come up with a good 50 pretty easily, but getting to 100 was a really tricky thing. And I hear a lot of times from my clients too, they get to like 20 or 10 things or whatever it might be, and they're like, I don't know what else to put on the list. And I don't know, like you just mentioned that of like, we as women tend, especially really ambitious women, I think we can have ambitions and we have desires, but sometimes we to like put them out on a piece of paper and say, these are the desires I truly have. There's something that shifts there. There's a difference. And I think it's that recognition of like, these are truly things that I want in life. And I may not have acknowledged them before, or I may not have opened up to that desire. I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely 100 sounds very overwhelming. I think most people struggle past 10, 15, especially because there's this permission. I think they don't feel like they deserve to have. I think when you start to list out your desires on a piece of paper, you're really confronted with your self-worth. Am I worthy of this? Do I deserve this? Is it okay for me to want this? There's so much personal development that can come up just in that one single exercise. And it's really lovely also to kind of confront and see, are you wanting things for yourself truly? Or I think a pattern that the clients I work with is like, they want things for their family members. They want things for their kids. They want things for people in their life rather than for themselves. So it's kind of like you have to redirect back of like, no, you're allowed to just focus this desire list on just yourself and what you want.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like so much. And I think that there's some good in that, right? Like I know a lot of times, like clients I work with, sometimes when we're doing a breathwork session or a meditation, they get this like profound impact, or like when they start thinking and envisioning the people that they're going to impact. So when we think about success in our business or a goal that we want to hit, when we internalize it as being something that's just for us, it doesn't have as quite of an impact. Like I've seen women move to tears when they start envisioning like what that's going to do for their clients, and then the ripple that has into those clients' families, and then to the like just the ripples of generations and people, and that progression is so different than if it's just all about like why I'm doing my business for me versus what it is for other people. And I think that makes a huge shift as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it really has to start with, you are allowed to have wants and desires. And of course, a part of that can be making an impact on the lives of other people. But we can't, I think, especially in the industry that I'm in and you are in as well, I think there's often burnout. There's often, too much focus on the outside rather than focusing on the inside, or at least trying to find a balance at the very, very least. Not just focusing on how can I serve, but how can I take care of myself so that I can serve.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that this idea of like, I see it happen a lot where women go all in on something, whether it's business related or health related or personal growth or development, like self-care, whatever it might be. We go all in, we're 100% committed. And I relate it to like the cycle and how we have these elements of like going all in. And then a few weeks later, we're not wanting to do any of it. And then that perpetual cycle that kind of comes over and over and over again, and just normalizing that as it relates to the cycle. I know that you work with women too that have that tendency to kind of feel like they've fallen off, and that self-defeat that we can get ourselves caught into of feeling like, man, I fell off once again. And like, what am I doing? And like, how am I doing this? And that element of repeating and coming back and beginning again and trying again and keep going and all of that. Like, what have you noticed? Like, what are the trends that you see right now in working with women when it relates to that the all in nothing sort of space when it comes to like mental health and physical health and taking care of ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of patterns around. I think it always comes back to self-worth, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's always, not feeling like people are worthy of taking care of themselves. They're worthy of having a good life, a peaceful life, a regulated nervous system. I think there's obviously, with a history of trauma and everything, people's perspectives of themselves shift and their sense of safety shifts. And so I think coming back to a sense of safety is a big piece of this work. The willingness to be a beginner, the willingness to go slow, one step at a time. Remind yourself of your resiliency and the resources that you already have within. I think there's definitely a pattern of people wanting to seek outside themselves often, and then they feel disconnected. Like I literally had a client this morning say, like, I've forgotten all my skills. Like I just don't even know what skills to use at this point in my life. And we had that conversation of, you haven't forgotten them. It's just you're out of practice. And so anything that's out of sight, out of mind is going to feel like a disconnect. So just starting one skill at a time, bringing back, habits that serve you, mindset that serves you, practices that serve you. I always encourage people to have a list of things that have worked for them in the past. Really just brainstorm and create a list of coping skills and lifestyle and nutrition and movement and activities and things that at one point in your life served you. And then just start trying to reintegrate these things back into your life, one thing at a time. It doesn't have to be perfect. The biggest struggle, I think, is that people beat themselves up. Like, oh, I used to be so good at this, and now I'm so out of practice. And then they give up. That's where the all or nothing comes in. Oh, well, I haven't done this in forever. So if I can't be at a level 10 at it, then I'm just not even going to bother. But that's such a silly, silly mentality. You got to walk before you run, and you have to build the foundation, and it's okay to have fallen off. The most important thing is coming back to yourself, knowing that you're worthy of taking care of yourself and taking it slow and building that practice back up, because a year from now, you're going to wish you had started. And if you don't, then you're just constantly leaving it out of reach in the future.
Yeah. And something, I mean, you mentioned it here again, too, is that sense of worthiness. And I know that in a lot of the work that I've done, a lot of things kind of stem back to that idea of worthiness and like how a majority of us, that is like one of those core wounds, I guess, in sense of like not feeling worthy. Do you feel like we ever get to a place where that sense of worthiness is just, we feel it, we're inherent, we like know it? Or is it always something that we're not, I don't want to say constantly battling, but constantly learning and integrating and like wrestling with, I think, over time? Or is it something that you've seen clients just get to this place of like worthiness is no longer an issue? Or is it, as we evolve and grow, that barometer of what we feel worthy for just keeps increasing, and so we're always kind of coming to face with that as we move through it? Like, what has been your experience in that?
Yeah, I honestly, especially because so much of my work has been around like body image and disordered eating, and self-worth is a huge piece of that work. I think it's something that we're always going to face and have to keep kind of recalibrating. So I think anyone who thinks that they're just kind of like done, okay, I'm worthy, like of course there's an innate sense of worth. Absolutely, we can feel that, and that is something we connect to. But I think there will be life situations that constantly kind of bring it back into our face, where we have to confront it again and again in different aspects, in different areas of life, with different people that we interact with. I just think it's something, whether it's societal or generational or rooted in trauma, I really think that it's something that we're just going to constantly keep coming up against. And that's a good thing, because like you said, we're increasing our zone of resiliency, is what we call it in mental health. Like people that have a very narrow zone of resiliency kind of get bounced up and down a lot. Like they don't have a wide range of emotion to tolerate. So same with worthiness. If you have this really wide range zone of resiliency, then you're going to know your worth and stay connected to your worth in the ups and downs of the emotion. And then that you're going to be challenged to kind of like raise the bar as you go on in life. So I definitely do think it's something that's just continual, and we're going to evolve with it.
Yeah. Cause I see that, like, I mean, even personally, like as my journey has gone on, the progression of where I'm at versus where I was, and like at that point in time, like I probably would have sat there and said like, I'm not even worthy of that, like, or whatnot. And, or I don't even believe that's possible. Or is that even something that I could handle, or any of those kinds of messaging that come up. But then as you keep taking steps forward, that it continues to get bigger, right? Like the vision or the possibility of what you maybe don't feel worthy for just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think that's something that's, I think, really valuable. One of the things I've really been wrestling with and learning is this idea that I can fully accept exactly who I am and where I am right now in this moment and in this stage, and not necessarily feeling like I have to uncover something. This morning, we did an exercise inside the Flow Collective, and she had us do like a timeline hopping thing, and about like getting to a goal. And I wrote on my piece of paper here, I said, you're already there. There's nothing that you need to do different. There's no version of you that you need to unearth, right? Just this idea that I think in the personal development, in this personal space world, there's this idea that we have to keep unearthing, or we have to keep evolving, or we have to keep unscaling back. And I think that it's going to be a never ending process. Like we're always going to be growing. We're always going to be learning something about us. And yet at the same time, it comes back to that place of like, how can I just be in full acceptance of where I am and know that I'm worthy exactly right where I am right now, and that there is no unearthing I have to do to make that difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally the paradox of change, and the paradox in mental health. There's so many paradoxes, but it always comes back to, if you want to hurry up, slow down. If you want to feel like you're evolving and growing, practice acceptance and gratitude for where you are at this moment. If you are wanting to totally embrace something, stop clinging to it, open your hands, allow it to go away if it needs to. Like there's just so much paradox in the world of personal development and mental health. And that's exactly what you just touched on, is really that if you want to grow and evolve and have more in your life, you have to have gratitude and acceptance of exactly where you are first, and know that it already is enough already in this moment. And you can have more. I think the concept of acceptance is a very difficult one for people, especially when they're wanting change. Like just, hearing that, oh, I have to accept and tolerate and be grateful for where I am, even though it's not where I want to be. It's a very difficult thing to wrap your head around.
Oh, for sure. That was, my next comment was gonna be like, it's easier said than done. Like it's easier to say. And I think that it goes for a lot of the personal development stuff, right? It's easier said than done sometimes, or that we can say it and we can see these Pinterest quotes or these graphics online or things. And even just now, like on the back of my desktop, all the quotes and things that are on the thing, it's easy to see them and be like, yeah, I believe them, but it's a whole different level of embodying them and actually truly living into that and going on that journey of true self-acceptance or truly leaning into some of these different quotes and mantras and things like that. So what have you seen? Like, I know you've seen clients get some massive healing and support in that and like growing in themselves. Like, what do you think is the game changer? What's the thing that shifts that differentiates those people that can truly lean into just fully accepting where they're at and like fully embodying that versus those people that kind of get stuck on that hamster wheel? I think there is like this personal growth hamster wheel that a lot of people can get caught on, or personal growth, like health growth, right? Like, or whatever it is, like we can get mental health growth, this hamster wheel of kind of going back to what we started with, this idea of like, I'm in it, I'm all into it. And then we get frustrated that it's not working, or we go all into it and we're in it and it's not working. And we kind of get stuck on that hamster wheel. So like, what do you feel like it is that you've noticed the differentiators between the hamster wheel kind of mantra or mentality versus those that like truly just lean in and accept it?
There's a couple things. I definitely think less is more is a concept. I think people always are asking me like, okay, what else can I do? And what else can I do? And what else should I practice? And give me a homework assignment, and give me a skill, and give me a tool, and give me a resource. And I'm like, let's go back to what we talked about last week. Have you done what we talked about last week? Have you integrated into your life? Go deeper into the practices that are working for you instead of worrying about adding in more. So that's the first one. The other thing is, I think people that have a time frame or some kind of external expectation, I'd like to reach X by Y date, that can really get in people's ways because you're disconnected from truly integrating, implementing, embodying the work that you're doing, and you're always just kind of outside yourself with this deadline. So I'm not a really big fan of deadlines in time block sense. I think people are really slow to change, and there's a lot of pressure around the way programs sometimes are sold, 5 week, 6 week, 8 week, da 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 da. It's like, okay, that's going to give you like the starting place. It's not going to be the end result in 8 weeks. It really is just a starting point. So taking pressure off of it needing to look a certain way or be done in a certain time frame, I think is also really important. And just integrating day to day, like truly embodying and becoming the version of yourself you want to be in every little detail, from, waking up first thing in the morning instead of snoozing, and going for a walk, and the choices that you make nutritionally, and the way that you move your body. And it's not about following any kind of rigid plan. It's just being in integrity with yourself. If you say you're going to do this, then practicing following through. And instead of beating yourself up if you fall off track, really getting curious and compassionate as to what happened. I never expect perfection from clients. I just expect compassion and curiosity, and being willing to kind of dig deep and see what happened that threw them off track, instead of, like overriding it with just like, well, nope, that didn't work. Go back to plan A. Like, okay, clearly plan A didn't work if you fell off the tracks. So we have to, do something differently. It really is about just like meeting yourself where you're at without expectation or pressure, and then getting curious, because everyone's healing, everyone's behavior change, everyone's mental health is going to look differently based on your history, the level of support that you have in your life right now, where you're starting from, where you want to move to. There's just so many factors. It's never going to be a cookie cutter
Yeah.
ABC, and you're done.
Yeah. Well, and I think that idea of compassion and curiosity also lends you to being able to discover what those things are that you want to do versus what like society has told you are the habits or the routines or the things that you need to have, right?
Yeah.
Because if you notoriously come back to the same thing, you're like, I want to get up at 5 a.m. every single day and notoriously like just keep coming back to it just doesn't work. Like I've tried. I like the other day on Instagram, somebody had like would you rather like this or this? And it was like a night owl versus an early bird. And I was like, I want to be an early bird. Like I want to be somebody that wakes up early. I just don't feel like I don't think that it's it's not a habit. I think it's like physiologically, that's not the way my body was designed. Like my body just doesn't thrive in that. No matter how much I like try to reset that circadian rhythm, it's like it works for a while and it can go extended periods of time. And then at some point it falls back into me preferring to be up. I don't stay up late. I'm like, I actually go to bed early. I just need a lot of sleep. And so when I need a lot of sleep, I'm not a natural riser. And when I naturally rise, I can do it and I can stay committed to it and I can make it happen, but it's not truly what my body needs. And so at some point, it always kind of falls back into that like habit slides. I don't think because it was me and the habit and the willpower, it was just like me learning to trust my body. And I think that curiosity and that compassion that you talked about, I think that is part of that. Like, that's where we start to have that question of like, okay, am I not staying committed to this because I am not staying committed and it's just truly a habit stacking thing or something of that nature? Or is it something like my body just doesn't want to wake up this early? Like it's not natural for me. Like I need 9 hours of sleep. And if getting 9 hours of sleep and I want to wake up at 5, that puts me to bed at like 7 o'clock. And I've got 3 kids that stay up till later than that, It's just not realistic. So I love that idea of compassion and curiosity because I think it does help you figure out like what those habits are that you want to have and that work for you and not just what everybody else says are the success habits.
Yeah. And it's so hard, especially with social media and comparison and expectation and pressure and, just all of societal messages. It's really, really hard for people, especially women, because we are highly sensitive and like, cyclical and like we are not going to fit into this like 9 to 5 box and just, always be performing and always be high functioning and always like there's so much value in learning about your body, your preferences, what works for you, and knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. It's not a failure that you're not getting up at 5 a.m. You're actually succeeding because you're listening to your body. Like you said, you could get up at 5 a.m., but that would throw off your entire evening. It would throw off your time with your family. It would probably compromise your values, the lifestyle you want to live. And just for the sake of saying that I'm part of the 5 a.m. club, like you have to really remind yourself what your values are, what your lifestyle is, and try to block out the noise of comparison from other people. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. My life does not look like the typical 9 to 5, like it's a 24-hour, you're constantly, my self-care is a part of my work. If I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not showing up fully for my clients. So same, like I love my mornings. I'm an early bird, but I need like 4 or 5 hours in the morning to do my morning routines, go on a walk, work out, spend time, sipping my coffee. And like, that doesn't make me lazy. That doesn't make me unsuccessful. That like, it really is just learning to honor what you value and choosing the lifestyle you want to live and being proud of that instead of feeling guilty for it.
Yeah, so much so. And I think that that's where, ultimately, like my goal is to help women really learn to trust themselves. And I know that's a big part of your mission too, is like helping people learn to trust themselves. And I think notoriously, like that's really just not what we've been taught to do. Like we've been taught, like you said, to follow all these external cues and all these external messages and what works for somebody else and doesn't work for you and all of these things. And I think that is ultimately my dog, man. I don't know. He's like either getting old and that's just like his trachea, or I called the vet today. Like if he swallowed a foxtail, like I don't know, but he's like hacking and he wants to be right next to me the entire time. So
he's honoring,
but like that's so Yeah, he's honoring his needs. He did not let me sleep in this morning. He was like, oh my gosh, you've coughed for like 4 hours straight this morning. It's like keeping me awake. But I know that that's a big part of what you do, and helping women literally do that and lean into like learning to trust themselves as well.
Yeah.
So if people want to go deeper and they want to learn more about how this really looks in, I know, especially in relating to where you work is like the areas of like body image and food and things like that. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about like who would be the best fit for your programs, like what you have available for people, and then where people could find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So ilanavarro.com is my website. I do complimentary consultations. You know, it says 15 minutes, but I'm so happy to chat with people and truly just work with the people that are a good fit for me and my practice. I tend to work one-on-one, so I toyed with the ideas of groups and programs and things like that. But honestly, I think my zone of genius is truly like that one-on-one connection and helping connect that person back into themselves through my guidance and leadership. And so I love working one-on-one with people. Most of my practice is women, absolutely open to working with men if you feel like this would be a good fit or something that, you know, they're interested in pursuing, but really developing a strong relationship to yourself. Typically high functioning women that just keep getting in their own way, keep sabotaging themselves, need to work on their deeper subconscious beliefs. Perhaps there's some sort of childhood instance or event or trauma or something that's really impacting the way they see themselves, and that just kind of ends up showing up as patterns in their life that they can't get themselves out of. I love working with people that are wanting to work on, like you said, their self-image, their body image, also relationships, and stepping into their leadership in their work and career. So really just like female empowerment all around, truly.
So good. So good. We will make sure to have that hooked up in the show notes for anybody that wants to, because I know I'm always bad about spelling and names and things like that.
Yes,
and coming
I know.
from somebody that has a
not at all how it sounds. So
yeah. And then same, I'm like, my spelling is always off. We'll make sure I have that in the show notes. Do you feel like there's anything that we missed or that was left unsaid that you want to make sure you leave people with?
I really just want to encourage people to build in some stillness and connection to themselves on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or rigid, but just even like when you shower or brush your teeth or pour your coffee, practice a little more silence, less inundation from radio and social media and reels and all these things. Like truly reconnect to the wisdom that's already inside of you. Listen to what your heart and your soul and your mind are telling you. There are so many intuitive hits that we tend to ignore because we are distracted and doing other things instead of listening to ourselves. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I would encourage people that you can start now, start doing for free, is just spend 60 seconds sitting in silence and just kind of taking inventory of your thoughts, your emotions, your desires.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that's like so simple, but going back is like harder said or like done than said, you know, and but yet it makes such profound impacts. Like it is by far. And that is one of the mantras like I have in my business this year. Actually, I put it on my bathroom mirror. It's like the more still you are, the faster your business grows.
I love that.
Because it does make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
Well, Ilana, thank you so much for hopping on. This was an amazing episode. I truly appreciate it. And I would love if you are listening to this episode, go over, let Ilana know that you listened in here and what you're walking away with. And I hope you have a fabulous day.
Thank you so much.